Hi, everybody. Hope all are doing good. Today, I will be talking about and sharing my opinion on case study of Ford Motor Company, which is a multinational company, and everybody knows about because it's so popular because of Henry Ford and their sustainability across the century, 20th century, and now they are still one of the major automobile company. So let's talk about the Henry Ford himself at first. Then I will be giving you the introduction about the Ford Motor Company, then how they invented their first popular Model T car, which sold more than 15 million now vehicles at that time, 1920s and 30s. Then the innovation part of this company, then the growth of the company, their domination in the market, and how they compete with other uh, competitors in US and across the world. Then their survival qualities over the century. So let's talk about Henry Ford. He was the founder of Ford Motor Company, and he was born in 1863 in Greenfield Township, Pennsylvania, to William Ford and Mary Ford. William and Mary are from European. I think William Ford is from Ireland. They are migrated, and mother is also from a European country. They were migrated to the U.S. in 16th centuries and their own families. So Henry Ford was born in 1863, and in his early stage, he was very good at repairing the watches, the wrist watches. Uh, he himself has written in his biography, his father had given him a wrist watch, and he was very fond of it, and he used to take off reassemble this, take it out and take it out. So his friends used to call him a watch repair man. That's how mechanical engineer Henry Ford had in him in his childhood days. And he had no great education. Sort of nobody thought that he's a brilliant kid. He was doing the normal education, early education. Then he had to move to, after his mother died in 1876. He was very sad, and he moved to the Detroit industrial area where he was working with factories, steam engine factories, and then again he was very fond of this the engine making, steam engine and gasoline engines, and he used to study how the cycle works and the motor works. If somebody fixes a motor to a cycle, how this works. Then in 1890s, he moved back to the farmland again with his father. He was still reluctant to work in the farms, and then he joined a company nearby, which was again a steam engine company. So he used to work in the engines. At the same time, he used to uh, work in the work as a bookkeeping executive in Goldsmith. Then he moved to the Thomas Edison's company, where he worked as a chief engineer. Then he attended the executive meeting. Then he put across his idea of making, manufacturing a quadricycle and the motor, all this. Thomas Edison himself was interested and gave him the initial funds to start it off. Then in the 1896-97 he started, and in 1898 he completed. But it wasn't that successful. He was still in a confused state whether steam engine works in the smaller vehicles or lighter vehicles or not. He was in this state of mind. Finally, 1901, he started with a few of his friends, the colleagues. Then he started the Ford Motor Company, where they they started producing the vehicles, the motor vehicles, to the business related clients. But it took a lot of time because the the spare parts and the other parts required for the vehicle, they used to purchase this from a different company. They called as Dodge Brothers, and they are popular. So later they also came onto the board, and they were also partners. They've decided to work on it, but it took a lot of time. And for him to, it took, he says it took almost 6 months to manufacture a complete one vehicle. It was too costly. It proved uh, non-affordable for the investors. Then they had to stop it. Later, he did not quit. We have to learn from you know Henry Ford one thing, that you should be never quitting until and unless you have a right reason. So the early stages, when he worked in the designs and the products or the vehicles that he has designed and produced, were not quality. So he was not convinced himself. Then later, he found better investors or partners. He had liberty as well, and the freedom. So the people who quit him, the who started Cadillac Motor Company, which later proved to be their competitors. So he quit and he started his own Ford Motor Company. That's when he designed the T-Mobile. I apologize. It is called as Model T. Model T proved to be the great invention. And he had his own thoughts. Before designing it. He went through a lot of processes that we speak in the invention of the Model T. So Henry Ford was not a quitter, and he used to work with his employees. He never shown this attitude of I am the CEO, the founder. So he always used to sit with the employees or the engineers and the other mechanics. So and he was open minded, that he used to listen to his workmates and welcome the ideas or the concepts that they have. That is why many engineers even now say Model T vehicle, which was so popular, uh, was a combination of different thoughts, and it carried a different values altogether as a vehicle. So this has come only because he was open minded and accept other uh, people's ideas or their thoughts. He was such a guy, and many people say that he used to promote Jewish and Nazism and other spiritual or religion related stuffs. So that is a critic's part. But overall, this is how Henry Ford was. He was a farmer's son and he never quit. He had idea that he was good in mechanical engineering. He did not stop that. Though his parents and well-wishers forced him or pressurized him or tried to convince him to work in the farms, he did not listen to them. He wanted to prove it to the world that he had a better mechanical engineer in him. That's how he tried to design a quadricycle, which proved to be wrong, but he learned better lessons. He thought the steam engine did not do not work on the lighter vehicles. Then it was very dangerous. Then he was the first one to bring in rubber tires to the quadricycles. All these things. Then many critics say that installing an engine, a steam engine, it's not the Ford who invented it, but back in centuries ago, people had discovered it. That is about, but he brought in the product, invented it, and put it across the best industry. Yeah, that's how it started. That is about Henry Ford, a founder director of Ford Motor Company. Then the introduction of Ford Motor Company. To say it started in 1903 with other potential investors, and they had a lot of belief in him. They had real understanding with Henry Ford. They moved on. So the first vehicle they produced was Model A, then the Model N. Later, eventually, the Model T. Model A was attracted many people, but uh, when we see the articles and other materials available, uh, this was too expensive, and the quality was again not to the mark. Or people never wanted to wait so long, especially the business oriented clients. So it was the motor vehicles they used to provide to the industrialists to move the you know more people, not a passenger vehicle. Then he thought of uh, not providing them, but start with the passenger cars for the individuals, especially the affordable vehicles for economically not so good the society. So one fine day, uh, in the articles that I read, they say that one day he gone back to his Detroit, Michigan, Detroit, the factory, went to third floor and said to everybody that I need third floor for myself and other few people because I want to design a new model. So he went to third floor with other key members and he locked himself. Then he worked for days together to design a Model T. Model T was very light vehicle, and firstly he wanted to design a affordable vehicle. So then he brought up the the lighter version of it. Then he took everybody's suggestions like we discussed earlier. Then he brought together everything, then started the Model T. Even in the introduction, we have to take Model T. Model T is sort of a benchmark, and this is the one which gave them mileage to the Ford, which becomes so popular. Everyone in in US, uh, the especially people who use their older generations used a Ford, they remember Model T. This love they've started. Then Henry Ford, uh, Henry Ford passed away in 1947. Then his grandchildren, especially the Henry Ford Jr. Henry Ford Jr. Replaced him. Then that's a history. Even now, Ford is one of the potential player in the automobile industry. So that's how the company started and went on. After this, the invention of this Model T, like I was talking, he went on to the third floor and locked himself and worked on it for days together with key members. Then, even before this while this going on, he met few key people in Peru. This used to provide the vanadium steel, which was very lightweight and very strong. Then he did engineering stuff. He discovered it, how good it is, because Peru was the country which had mines. Uh, James and yeah, let me take their names as well. Yeah, James brothers. They were they used to provide. They used to produce 92% of the world's vanadium steel production. So they themselves have come to Ford and Henry Ford and met him and explained him that they can provide the whole vanadium steel to his manufacturing company. So that's the history. He understood that he can make the vehicle very lightweight and still a stronger one. So he understood that the roads were very bad at those times. Used to be sticky, especially in the village and non-urban areas. Even horses could not pull out the carts which were stuck in the muddy roads and the paths. So he understood and he made a flexible vehicle which which passes through any which goes through or easily travels through any road. Such a vehicle, if you could go to you know online and check it out, Model T, you have sort of videos which tells you how good it was. Even the engine that he built was so not so engineering. Anybody could, if something goes wrong, anybody could pull off from the road and take off the the bonnet and check it out, the engine combustion and other stuffs. So it was such a easy going and anybody can, not a rocket science sort of vehicle. Then it was so economically affordable. Anybody can buy this vehicle. They say back in those days, even to go to 5 miles away from your house was not easier because you did not have vehicles to travel. Not everybody was get horses. So this made them everybody. Initially, it was like 750 or $800. Later, he understood the market. It within weeks after completing the Model T, he had 25,000 orders. That's a sort of craze it created in the U.S. in those days in the 1908 and 1907, I'm talking about 1908 and 1907. Then he understood he needs to reduce the price. So every dollar he reduced, he made uh, thousands of people approach for the vehicle. Then up to 1927, this model was a craze. People say that half of the cars in the whole US was Model T. And initially, he did not put any other cars except black. The reason being was he had one paint which used to give uh, a car get finished within few hours. So that's why he never experimented with other colors that they say. Later he brought in other colors, but black, why he preferred other, again it is a sort of, he wanted to produce more and more cars, so he never wanted to experiment with any other colors. Then very interesting thing that we need to understand here is he was the first car company in US, Henry Ford, integrated the assembly lines. That is, we call now progressive assembled sort of thing. So this gave them a lot of uh, reasons to complete, time to complete more vehicles. So when you have the assemble lines, you don't need people working in multiple tasks. So person is good in one particular task, he just need to do that. So they say more than close to 5,000, 6,000, parts of this vehicle has to be engineered, take care of, screen, then test it, all these things. So the assembly line he brought in or integrated into his mass production helped him produce more vehicles with very less inaccuracy. That is one thing we can learn. Here's the first one. Then later, he had many engineers or entrepreneurs, industrialists visit his office. I mean his factory in Detroit and learn about the mass production. And later, everybody implemented, including Japan and Germany. So this is of the invention of the Model T brought the Henry Ford company into mainstream, and he was the richest person by the time 1920s. Many others, including Cadillac, they wanted to compete with him, but by then he was rich enough. Nobody could beat him. General Motors and Cadillac, everybody tried to compete with him. They were the main competitors in those days for him. When it comes to innovation, he is the not only Henry Ford, later his son Edsel Ford. Then after, it was a sad demise. I mean, he it was a sudden death due to certain diseases. 1943, Edsel Ford died before uh, Henry Ford died in 1947. Then later, his grandchildren took over. Throughout the commanding officers or the commanding people in the hierarchy, everybody was given a very good thought to the innovation. They knew that until unless we adapt to the new technology or the market desires, they cannot sustain. So they've understood one thing. When it comes to Ford, we need to understand any new entrepreneur coming into the domain. They have to learn this. From Ford, we have to learn this. They never stopped. innovating themselves. For example, uh, recently in 2017, 2016, they've started asking every new startup which is into self-driving car model sort of. Recently, a couple of years ago, they acquired ownership of the Ergo AI, which is a self-driving car startup. They have bought this. They're technology oriented. They always want to get into the market. So everybody say that Ford was a one company which always want to adapt and go along with the flow, not only the traditional, keeping the traditional values intact. Still, adaptability was one thing they've carried out throughout their 100 and plus years of journey in the car making industry. So innovation was always a part of them. There is no question about it. You can take the models that they have acquired and the companies that they have taken over. That we talk more about the growth and the marketing and the competition, how they survive. Is innovation in the sense uh, they never compromised on the quality, including the people who are heading the board now. So everybody is into innovation in the sense bringing the technology into it. You can say they always wanted to bring in the Dell companies, distribution channel, then chain model, distribution chain model. That Dell's model they want to adopt, and they tried it. Then they wanted to control it from one office where the chief engineers sit and control the other not so technical teams across the franchisers or the other stakeholding companies or dealers. So this is how one they're the first company to adapt to the web portal back in 1960s and 70s. They had an email writing and communication system. It was not public, but still technically affordable. Companies used to discuss, companies used to communicate this. They're the first company to adapt that feature, and they were the ones in 1990s, 90 before 95. They started their own website and asked people to come onto the website and fill the form with their requirements and how they feel, the feedback forms. They were the first ones to do that, and let me tell you, this is one point that we need to learn. In 90s, at the end of the 90s, they started, you know, working on the traffic to their website. They had their own teams to bring more traffic to their website, which we need to work on. So the vision that they had now, everybody in 20th century, everybody is talking about the traffic, website, SEO, then the uh, other online tools to promote and bring in more people to our website and make them click on the buttons that we want them to, then leave their feedback or what is their the buying procedure. So these qualities, company like Ford, it has adopted earlier, back in 1990s, even earlier than that. This is again a very important thing we need to know in the case study. And the growth of the company, they when they started, they were the big enough. I mean, when we know that in 20s by 1927, They had sold 15 million Model T cars. No company ever did in the history, the back in 1930s and 40s. Even now, if you sell 15 million vehicles with the available market and how easy it is to reach out to people, buyers, the target audience, and create the traction and collect the surveys before starting your model or a new design or a version. Imagine we have everything, but it's still difficult to sell the first 1,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 cars, any model it may be. All right. So just imagine they did this, and it was done by Henry Ford and the team. So he wanted to give the value, the solution to the people's problems. All right. Then the growth of the company, that's how it started. They knew that if they let out allow other competitors to rule the market or give them time to grow along with them or reach out to people. So that's why they had this strategy to acquire stakes. And in after the World War II, they they moved to other countries international market, started in Germany, Russia, then Japan. Even US had given permission to other international companies to come to US and sell their products. That's when they had to face Toyota, then Japanese company Mazda, then Volvo. All these companies rushed to US market and they were competitors. And Ford understood. They reached out to them. Initially, started their own manufacturing units in Russia, Germany, then Japan. That did not work, but later they bought stake in those companies. Now, Volvo and Mazda, Jaguar, all these companies are. Jaguar is not a Jaguar and Land Rover. They sold it to Indian Tata Motors, but it used to be the Ford Motor Company. This is how they went out and they bought stakes, purchased those companies, technically become the owner of their competitors. This is how they went on, and they every now and then they bought Model T in 1908, then F series in 1948, then the Thunderbird in 1955, then GT40 in 1964, then Ford Mustang, which is so popular even now. If we ask our parents, they know it. Ford Mustang in 1964, Taurus SHO 1988, then Crown Victoria in 1992, GT in 2004, Focus in North and South American countries, which is Focus RS is a popular one even now, which is a popular. In 2016-17, they were talking about starting a biggest and the manufacturing plant for this Focus RS in Mexico, but later they canceled it. They already have a Focus manufacturing, the Ford Focus RS manufacturing plant in Mexico, but still they wanted to go ahead with the second one. They had they had gone down on this. Then Chevrolet is one of the great products. Then you have Mercury. Again, these companies acquired them. The competition, like I've told you, they went out to other countries and they bought these companies. At the same time, adaptability of the nature or the market trends. They are pretty good at it. They never compromise on the quality. First thing, when you have this, you can always compete, no matter who comes. They Henry Ford always believes, and there are quotes. He says that with quality you can beat anybody. You can beat n number of competitors who come to you know compete with you. Then the surviving over the century, it is a family business. Most of the Henry Ford or the Ford Motor Company's uh, assets, the funds, are in a foundation. They have their own foundation part. Uh, there are more number of people, but the voting authority is still with the family, the Ford family. That is how they dominate, and it is, you can call, it is a family company or a family industry. So they have the authority, though very less number of shares, less than 10% of the stake they have in the company, but the voting authority with the family of the Ford. Now, one of the grandchildren of the great grandchildren of this Henry Ford is chief executive member. He's on board. Alan Mulally is the CEO who's handling this. Then this is how they've survived. There were protests against this company, unions, like we see in every uh, the car making company or any factory related manufacturing units. They have their own unions, labor unions. They had faced this in 1950s and 1960s. They've gone they've gone through all these processes, and they've struggled, and they have their own model to go through this and sustain. And even in 2007 8, they had a lot of difficulties. They lost in a couple of years, they lost more than $12 billion, but later they got picked up. That is very important for a multinational company. Then they gone out to their competitors, they compromise on certain things. It's like that. They are there in more than 3 to 4 continents, more than 100 countries in the world, and it is more than $150 billion company with assets in the market value. So it is that. That's how they survive. So in this case study, what we need to know is, the first thing is the invention. How do you discover a product with a value, a unique value, then go to market, serve with the solution to the problems. They solve the problem of the individuals who are not able to buy a car which is more than $500. He was there to give them a product for cheapest product, but still a very good quality product. That's how even in India, we believe Ford is one of the best cars. If you drive back in 20 years ago, if you drive a Ford, you are a standard family, comes from a fam sort of. People used to look at it as a rich man. Even now, the younger generation still believes in Ford. There are many SUVs and smaller cars which serves every standard of the economy and the communities over here. So that's about Ford Motor Company. I believe I have given you all the angles and the knowledge that I know. Maybe if you go uh, online and do your own research, and you would find it. Here and there, I maybe I may be, you know, not giving you the complete, what do you say, real picture, the complete picture, a comprehensive knowledge on this. But still, this is enough. This is it, right? So it was about Ford Motor Company. When you talk about Ford Motor Company, you would talk about, definitely you need to talk more about Henry Ford. Yes. So thank you, Mary, very much. You have a good time ahead. See you again. Thank you.